Today in our webinar, I want to be talking to you about the time elements in the projects, in the Revit models. Time is expressed in Revit by putting in phases. I'm going to go and do a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and then I want to actively show you some workflows in the software itself. Just because I do believe that Phases is a feature of Revit that you need to really grasp the concept of what it means to include time in your projects. So let's get going. So first of all, when do you use Phases? And Phases are convenient to use when you're doing a renovation, and then you're going to have an existing moment of the project, and you're going to have the new construction. But Phases can also be a situation of a project that is going to be developed, that is going to develop different areas in different times, or different wings in different times. And so that is why I say Phases is the time element, the fourth element, brought into the architectural realm. So in Revit, there is a couple of locations where you track the phases. First of all, as you can see in this snapshot of this dialog box, and just keep in mind, I'm going to show you all this, and I'm going to show you the workflows in the actual interface, because I think that this is one of the subjects that I like to show you, not just the PowerPoint and screenshots from the interface, but the actual Revit interface. But let's go over the PowerPoint first. So in the properties of any view, you will have at the bottom of the properties dialog box, you will have a facing panel where you will have a facing filter and the actual face. And through the webinar, I'm going to clarify those two concepts. Then phases are also, so that is how you set the faces of the view. But you also have to set the faces for the individual element. Right? So the faces of the element, every element in the identity data panel, underneath the identity data panel, actually, it has a facing panel where it allows you to set the face where that element was created and where that element was demolished, in case you need to demolish or that element was demolished. Now, the other thing that you can do with Phases is that you can also include that face element into your schedules. So when you are doing a remodeling project and you had the existing building, you might want to list the doors that were existing versus the doors that are going to be in the new construction of that remodel. And when you create the schedule, just keep in mind that there is in the new schedule properties dialog box, there is a location that allows you to set the faces for those schedules also. Okay, so that will help you keep track of what doors or what windows or what elements of your project. And just remember that you can schedule anything in Revit. For any schedule that you create, you can add faces to them. So where do you find Phases in the software itself? If you go to the Manage tab, in the Manage tab, you will find the facing panel, and in the facing panel, you will find the Phases command. When you are in the Phases command, when you click here on this icon in the software, the first dialog box that you're going to see is this dialog box, and Phases are the initial phases that you get on the project are the past at the top and the future at the bottom. And it gives you, by default, it gives you two phases that are called existing and new construction. Both those names are changeable. are editable. You can make them phase 1 and phase 2, or wing, student wing, and then the faculty wing, or however the phases of your project are selected. A little bit of a word of caution though, when we talk about phases, we're talking about whole areas of the building. And the reason why I say that is because at some point in my travels through Revit, I saw a model that the person that handed, that was when I was in the MEP firm, and we were doing all the ventilation systems for a house, and the architect that had created that model had created a phase for the building of each wall. That is not what phases are there for. That was an overuse of the software, right? So I need to mention that so that you keep in mind what is the actual real use of the software, of that feature of the software. So once you create your phases, the next hurdle, the next thing that, it's not a hurdle, the next property or circumstance that you need to understand is that your views are going to be controlled by a feature that we call phase filters. A phase filter is a rule that you apply to a view to control the display of the elements based on their phase status. And I'm talking about the phase status of the element, right? So, and I'm going to talk about these 4 phase statuses in a moment. You can create a combination of the phases, of the phase filters, in however which way you want. The default phase filters are none. So if you set your phase filter to none, it means that the view is going to display all the elements from all the phases. When you choose the show all filter, it's going to show all the new elements using the graphic settings defined for that category of element. It's going to show the existing, the demolished, and the temporary elements. Now, I know existing and demolished starts becoming, new construction, existing and demolished becomes it's kind of obvious what they are talking about. A temporary element is an element that was created in, for example, the new construction phase and gets demolished in that same phase. Sometimes you need to create some supporting walls in that same phase that you know that you're going to demolish them later. Those are temporary elements. Okay, the show complete is going to show the completed project after demolition and new work have been performed in the current phase. Then you have the demo and new, which shows all the demolished elements and the new elements that have been added to the model. The show new is self-explanatory. It's going to show only the new elements that were added to the building. Previous and demo will show the existing elements and the demolished elements. The previous and new is going to show all the original elements that were not demolished and all the new elements that have been added to the building model. And the previous phase is going to show all the elements from the previous phase. Okay, so, and that becomes clearer. I know this tends to be a little bit overwhelming and confusing, and that is why I'm going to go into the software and show you exactly how that gets handled in the software itself. Now, then we are going to talk about the project status. And in the project status, each view can show one or more phases by the phase filters. The status of the elements are, you can have a new element that was created in the current phase. An existing element was created at an earlier phase and will continue to exist in the current phase. A demolished element was created at an earlier phase and it's going to be demolished in the current phase. And a temporary element was created and demolished in the current phase. Okay, and then you have, this is the dialog box that you get for the graphic overrides. And then you have an element that is called an infill element in the facing. And that happens when you have a wall that is in a new, that is in an existing phase. And then in the new construction, you have a window that was created in the existing phase, was demolished in the current phase. And then you have a different phase between the host and the inset element, and then you can place, and this is something that usually Revit doesn't allow you to do, you will be able to demolish a window and place a window, a new window, on top of that infill element. Okay, and I have here a graphic display of how that looks like in the project. This is an existing wall where I created a window that was demolished in the new construction, and then I placed a new window on it. Okay. To demolish an element, you can use in the modify toolbar in Revit, there is a little hammer tool that allows you to go around and bang on elements and demolish them. Or you can select an element itself and define the phase in which it was created, and then define when the element was demolished. The phase properties for views in the properties dialog box, as I mentioned at the beginning, for every view in the properties dialog box, you will have a phasing panel that will allow you to set the phase filter and the current phase of the view. If you're doing existing buildings, I advise to create views that are looking at the existing phase so that the walls that you create go automatically into the existing phase and you don't have to move them from one phase to the other. And then the phase properties in the element properties of a element itself are seen in the properties dialog box and the element properties of the element, and then you will be able to define when it was created and when it was demolished in the case that it was demolished. So with that, let me jump into the software a little bit. And so in the software itself, so that you can see in the software itself the things that I just showed you, if you go here to the Manage tab, this is the Phases panel. If you click on it, it opens up this dialog box, which is the Phasing dialog box. The Phasing dialog box has 3 tabs on the top. Notice that you can change the names of the phases. You can also always insert a phase before or after the phase that you have in the building, in the project. So let's say that we're going to call this a phase 1. And then I'm going to add a phase after, and so automatically it gets called phase 2. Okay, then if I go to the phase filters, right, I can choose to show complete, and in the phase filter, something that I didn't mention before, you will be able to set the status of how the elements are being portrayed. So just notice that in show complete, new elements are going to be shown by category. Existing elements are going to be shown by category. Demolished elements are not going to be displayed. And temporary elements are not going to be displayed. So this is how you read this dialog box. When it says that elements are going to be overridden, right? So like in the existing phase in the previews and demo, these are going to be the existing elements are going to be overridden. How are they going to be overridden? You can go to the graphic overrides dialog box, and here's where you set how the overrides, what the overrides are going to be. So it's a change, you can change the line styles, and all this is, you can set it up in your own projects by your own company standards. So as I said, what I always advise is start creating your views that will show what is being shown in each phase. So let's grab all these elements here. Actually, let me be a little bit more accurate in my selection. So all these elements here, I'm going to go to the filter and make sure that I don't grab grids. Grids don't have faces. And notice that the minute I have construction elements, they all were created, they all came into the phase 1. Why? Because that was my new construction. So I'm going to change them to the existing phase. And if you notice, now they are all overridden. Why? Because the properties of the view is set to show all, and my current phase is the phase 1. So I'm going to do a couple of things here before I move on. I'm going to grab all these elements, and again, going to my filter, make sure that I only have construction elements. Yes, I'm going to set all these elements to phase 1. Actually, I'm going to do these on phase 2. And notice that they disappeared. Why? Because my current view, the current phase of the view is phase 1. Okay. And I'm going to, actually, I'm going to grab this hallway and also set it to phase 2 to make it go away here. And I'm going to leave all these elements in phase 1. And then what needs to happen in reality, right? I need to come in real life and come here and create duplicates of this view. And this I'm going to call level 1, phase 2. And I'm going to, on that level 1, phase 2, I'm going to set the phase of that view to phase 2. And then on level 1, phase 2, I am going to see phase 2, and then in the filter, I can go and choose that I want to see the previous and new. Okay, and by choosing previous and new, notice that this shows as previous, and previous before that one, and new is the only one that is not overridden. And that is why I took my thin lines off. Right, and then I'm going to grab this one and duplicate it. And I'm going to call it level 1, and I'm going to call it level 1 existing. And I'm going to change my phase to existing for that floor plan. And then it disappears everything that is not existing. And then obviously I will have to control my crop region so that I just see the existing phase. Okay, and that in a nutshell is how phases are handled. So, I mean, that was a little bit of a demo so that you get to see what phases look like. And with that, I'm going to open up the floor for questions.